chapter 23, verse 1 says, Then Paul, looking earnestly at the council, said, Men and brethren, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And so Paul's talking about his life as a Christian, but he's even going back further than that, because he says, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And he's talking about his whole life, really, because Paul, throughout his life, strived to live a good life, obeying his conscience. Now, he was obviously ignorant about salvation. He stood at the side while they stoned Stephen, and he guarded the clothing. Jesus, when Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, said to him, Paul, it's hard for you to kick against the goads, indicating to us that Paul had been convicted by his conscience, that what he was doing, he tried to destroy the church, was in fact wrong. His conscience was saying to him, you shouldn't be doing this. But Paul went ahead and did it anyway. So Jesus just reminded Paul that, he was really taking a lot of strain in his conscience by doing what he was doing. But anyway, so Paul really strove to live a life of a good conscience. Acts 24, verse 16 says, This being so, I myself always strive to have a conscience without offense toward God and men. And so Paul had learned the lesson that, we need to live lives that do not override our consciences, because God's will and the conscience of anyone will always be in sync. That's a gift given to us by God. It's a very good gauge given to us by God to show us which way to walk. Again, just to avoid evil and do good, not being led of the Spirit. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 14 says, But solid food belongs to those who are of full age. That is, those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Now, that word exercise means trained. So again, this is speaking about a mature believer who their senses, talking about their spiritual senses, including the role of the conscience, because he talks specifically about exercise to discern good and evil. And so the stronger our conscience is, the more easily we can identify what is evil and what is good. But when our conscience is weaker, well, then the line becomes a lot more blurred, because our conscience is not able to convict us about. The conscience still knows what is good and what is evil, but it's just not it's in a weakened, wounded state, so it cannot really make its voice felt. It's not a voice, but I'm just trying to bring the analogy across. And so mature believers have learned to listen to their consciences and thus strengthen their consciences